I'm here now with Grace, who is a holistic nutritionist and health coach. Grace, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm super excited to talk to you. I've been on my own holistic health journey for a little bit now, and it's been a huge help in my life across the board. So I'm excited to have you on here and talk and hopefully help some other people get to that place in their life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so happy to talk about it. I went through my own holistic journey myself. So, one of my favorite topics, obviously.
I feel like it always starts there and then it just keeps going deeper and deeper down. So
Yeah.
something you really help people with is their gut and hormone health, as well as helping people find a way to really sustain and incorporate holistic approaches into their nutrition and lifestyle. Is that correct?
Yes. I always try and make it the most sustainable as I possibly can because I feel like all of these quick fixes are so popular these days. And my whole ideology is getting people off that hamster wheel of trying something and then falling off the wagon and then trying something else. So, more sustainable approach is always better.
I love that. I would love to know. We're going to start with something super easy. What is the importance of holistic nutrition?
Oh, I think it's so important. I mean, of course, not everything can be healed through food, but I think it's such an important component of our lifestyle. I mean, what we put into our body affects everything from our digestion, our hormones, to our mental health. And so I think really understanding the importance of nutrition and how nutrients affect all of those parts of our health is one of the most important things that we can learn about.
If there is someone out there who is trying to do this and they're trying to be better about what they're putting in their bodies, what are some suggestions you'd give them or lifestyle changes they can make right now that could start showing up and making a difference?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing I always like to say is shop the perimeter of the grocery store because typically a lot of the junk is in the middle, like in the aisles. So if you just stick to the outside, like your produce, your fruits and vegetables, your meats, stuff like that, making that small change just like 80% of the time is going to make a huge, huge difference. I think the not total elimination, but the reduction of the amount of processed foods that we have in our diet is like the number one thing that I always suggest. Like just start there, start reading labels and paying attention to what you're putting in your body. And just that tiny, even like mental shift is going to make a huge difference.
And why is it more beneficial for us? You look at medicine and what medical health kind of looks like right now. Why is it more beneficial for us to focus on the overall health and wellness of our bodies rather than just, I'm going to go to the doctor, let me grab some medicine real quick and I'll be better tomorrow? Why is this a better option for you long term?
Yeah, I think it's the whole shift of like preventative care versus acute care. Obviously, like medicine is incredible. And there are so many times that we need it, but we want to prevent needing medication, as much as we possibly can. And so taking care of our bodies before they get to a point where we need that acute medical care is, I think, really, really important.
Is there any supplements or anything that you use that you encourage people to take? I know getting into holistic health, one of the big things I have learned is each week we're going in and we're learning the new supplements that my body may need, may not need this week, or as it continues to adjust and work through things. Is that something that's also part of that for you? Like, yes, you can fix your diet and stuff, but are supplements another part of that journey along the line?
It depends. My whole approach is being as minimal as I can with supplementation and really focusing on like the dietary component. But of course, there are times when supplements are really, really beneficial. Like if you're trying to heal your gut at certain points, like a probiotic can be really beneficial, or L-glutamine to help seal the gut lining. But I think people overdo it with the supplements and they kind of go that route instead of making the maybe necessary shifts in their diet. They kind of band-aid it with supplements. So I kind of try and steer people away from that. But supplements, yeah, they can be really, really beneficial. But I think it depends on the individual. I mean, there's certain things like I think most people could benefit from a little bit of magnesium, for example, because our soil is so depleted of it. And so our produce doesn't get as much as it used to. But in general, I think supplements are very, very individual.
I agree with that. I was just curious if that was kind of part of the process too. And it's really easy to find things at the store and buy them because you heard or saw something online and you're just like, let me put that in my body real quick. It may help.
Yeah.
If someone isn't focused on the overall health and the foods that they're putting into their bodies, what are some symptoms that they're probably dealing with and they just don't know it's related to that?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people nowadays feel tired all the time. Maybe they're not managing their stress as best as they should. Like bloating and digestive pains. Maybe your hair is falling out. Maybe as a female, you have like really bad PMS. Like all these sorts of things are, I always say, like symptoms are the way that your body communicates to you. And I think nowadays we just move at such a fast pace, like just our lifestyles, that we don't really pay attention to the things that our bodies are telling us, and we kind of just push them off as normal. Like, oh, everyone just feels like they could sleep for 14 hours a day and not have enough energy. But really like tuning in and paying attention to how our body might feel off is really, really important, because I think most people nowadays are kind of on autopilot and they don't realize how good they can actually feel. And it's all about like optimizing the way that you feel every day. And I think when people start eating better and taking care of themselves and really like tuning into how their bodies feel, they notice like a huge, huge difference with that.
In talking about foods, you mentioned how to avoid processed foods, paying attention to the outer rim when you go to grocery stores. Is there
Mhm.
specific ingredients that we need to be looking for? I know a hot one that is talked about often is red dye. Is there others along that line? Is that one, we're just seeing stuff online. What are some of those like specific ingredients we should probably be paying attention to?
Man, there's so many. For what I deal with like digestive issues, mostly the artificial sweeteners like erythritol, xylitol, sucralose, those are huge ones. You'll find those in all the products that are like sugar-free or keto, like all the products that are marketed as being a healthier alternative have some of those artificial sweeteners that can cause a lot of digestion, like digestive issues, bloating, stomach cramps. And then canola oil, the seed oils, now I think is like a trend of people trying to avoid those, which are in a lot of health foods as well. So yeah, I would say artificial sweeteners, seed oils, and then you want to look out for gums. But of course, it depends on like the severity of the issues. I think the easiest way to do it is just reduce the amount of processed foods that you're having and not pay too much attention to the specific ingredients. And I think that'll make a huge difference, because you don't want to stress yourself out so much with having to learn about every single ingredient and what it's doing to your body. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to ask about the why specific ingredients are important to pay attention to, because at least we can pay attention to certain words. That's a little bit easier than the overall. There's 80 million things you have to avoid.
Yeah.
I j- you talk about also produce. Do we have to be buying organic produce or is all produce kind of made similar? Is that something that's been marketed to us? And what about freezer vegetables, fruits? Are those okay to buy if somebody's trying to do this and they want to do this in a cheap way possible? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah. So this is kind of a hot topic. And personally, I don't stress too much about organic versus non-organic. I think if you're someone who's really, really struggling with your health, organic is probably better because it's not sprayed with as many herbicides, pesticides, that sort of stuff. But for the general person, if you're just trying to make the shift, I wouldn't stress too much about the organic versus non-organic. As long as you're eating enough vegetables, even if it has to be frozen for convenience, like you're super busy, you don't want to buy a bunch of produce and then have it go bad, and waste your money. I wouldn't worry about that too much.
Okay, so I'm okay to buy some frozen, but still buy some whole fresh ingredients. Is that fair to say?
Yes, totally fair.
Good, because I know there's, also with our culture, we are a very busy working culture. I know that comes a little bit with wellness as well, that we have to pay attention to our mental health. Wellness overall is looking at the entire aspect of your body, not just the foods that are going into it. So, if there's something people can be doing besides eating really healthy right now to improve their lives, what are some other things you suggest for them?
Exercising, of course. Getting out in nature, I think, is like one of the most important things that you can do because it naturally just calms you down. Like when you're walking in the woods or just like going outside and getting fresh air and sunlight, like you are naturally going to decrease your cortisol level. And when your cortisol is chronically elevated, which most of ours are, that's when we're more vulnerable to getting sick and to developing these like chronic conditions. So yeah, if you can exercise outside, that right there is so ideal, but just going outside and getting fresh air, spending time in nature, meditating, just moving your body, like the things that we're meant to be doing, you got to do those at least a couple times a week if you can. And I think along with the diet component, like if you do those things, you're going to feel generally good.
I love that, especially because I think it's important to get out in nature regardless. Mental health, physical health, it's just good all the way around.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're supposed to be outside, you know, like I think now we're inside so much under like fluorescent lights on our computers. And that's just the way that the world is. But like making it a priority to go outside and get fresh air, it makes a huge difference in people's moods.
For sure. And speaking of moods, you are very helpful for women in restoring hormone health. What does that kind of look like? And I also want to involve in this the question of birth control. A lot of us have been taking birth control for a long time. Is that something you're seeing is really impacting women as we've gotten older and we've been on it for decades at this point?
Yeah, I mean, women's health, it's a whole can of worms, you know, because I feel like so much of the stuff that we are taught is like based off of the way that men operate, and women operate completely different. Like we are so driven by hormones and on a completely different cycle than men are. And I see a lot of women having like really bad PMS, like I mentioned earlier, or their periods are just like all over the place. And that affects literally everything. Like your menstrual cycle should be a vital sign. Like that says so much about your health in general. And I think, you know, people being on birth control since the age of like 13 or 14, taking those hormones over time is going to affect something. And when you try and get off it, there's probably going to be a large swing back. And I see it affecting people's mental health, their digestion, like so many different aspects of our health are that I have seen have been negatively impacted from birth control. Of course, that's not the case for everyone. And birth control is a great tool for women, but there are other ways that we can prevent pregnancy that I think are better and safer for our health in general.
Well, and you have a very specific expertise. So I want to ask some things to help some people. I know you post about their stuff on social media to help people see this in an easier light, which I think is really awesome. If you're going out to eat, eating out is very hard, right? Going to a restaurant and ordering something off a menu may not be the healthiest thing you can have. If you have to go out to eat, or if you just want to go enjoy time with friends, what are things that you look for on a menu to order?
Yeah. So I feel like I might be biased, but I feel like it's really not that hard to get good food at a restaurant. Unless, of course, I mean, I'm spoiled. I live in Miami, so there's tons of healthy options here. I'm sure if you live, you know, like in the middle of the country somewhere, there's not that many options, but I try and typically avoid like gluten or like pasta or pizza or things like that that I know are going to upset my digestion. That's just because that's how I am. So I typically try and order something with protein, carbs, and a fat. Like I think having a balanced meal is so important. If I'm having a carbohydrate rich meal, I want to get like a side of protein. But I don't stress about it too much, you know, like if there's certain things that, you know, make you feel crappy, like I'm not going to go out and have a whole pizza because I know that's not going to make me feel good. So I'll get like chicken. I love sushi, tacos, things like that. Like it doesn't have to be so hard, and you don't have to never go out to eat if you're on a health journey. I think that's something people overcomplicate.
For sure. You were speaking of foods that you know that upset your stomach. How did you get to that point where you started figuring out what foods upset you in your digestive system?
So I did an elimination diet. Um, I eliminated, it's so funny because my mom told me for years, you probably shouldn't eat gluten. And I was like, no, I'm fine. But I finally cut it out. And like after the second week, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. Now, some people can have gluten and feel totally fine. I'm not saying everyone should cut out gluten, but for me, it just, I mean, I got hives, my stomach hurt, I got really, really bloated. It made me really tired. I had brain fog, like all these symptoms that I thought that's just like the way that I was were correlated to me having gluten in my diet. And so when I removed it, I felt so much better. And I did go through phases where there was more foods that I couldn't have, but through healing my gut and really making my health a priority, I've been able to reincorporate those and I feel fine. The only thing now that I don't eat is gluten.
I am currently on that same journey. I can't have gluten and I can't have sugar, well, processed sugars. So yeah, that makes sense. Our gut is a little bit more sensitive than we give it credit for, I would think.
Yeah, I agree.
I asked, and I ask you all the things that we should take out or what we should change, but what are some things we can add to our diet that might be able to help?
Yeah, I think most people undereat protein. Um, if you're a vegan or vegetarian, try and get as much protein as you can. If your digestion is impaired, it's going to be a little tricky because you're going to have to eat beans and legumes and tofu and stuff that might upset you. But protein is so, so important for energy, for healing, for everything. So make sure you're getting enough protein. And then fermented foods are also great, like sauerkraut, kimchi, stuff like that. And then produce, fruits and veggies, and root vegetables are also great, like potatoes, carrots, stuff like that.
Well, and I can speak to being a vegetarian. I've been one since I was 8 years old. So, it's been a long journey for me, but, a protein shake in the morning with some almond milk and spinach and berries is one of my go-to things that I add to my diet. Do you have
Yeah.
one of those go-to recipes that's super easy, something you can always put together, it's kinda always in your fridge?
For me, I go through phases where I get like really obsessed with certain foods until I get sick of them, then I'll stop eating them. For right now, it's shrimp, plantains, and zucchini. That's what I always have.
And you just always do you saute those things together or those individual things you eat?
So the plantains, I have an air fryer, so I air fry them. And then the zucchini and the shrimp I saute.
Love that. These are some great ideas and ways to incorporate stuff into your diet and your health that should really start to help you, I feel like. So thank you for sharing so many tips and tricks with us. Is there anything else that you've learned recently that has really even blown open this whole holistic lifestyle even more for you that you're like, wow, I wish I would have known that sooner?
I think the importance of our circadian rhythm, like not just how much we're sleeping, but like the timing of when we go to bed and when we wake up and how important light is to our bodies, like the sunrise and the sunset and having blue light and all those sorts of things and how they affect the hormones that are produced throughout the day. So I guess the best way to have a healthy circadian rhythm is go to bed at, around the same time, wake up around the same time every day. And if you're watching TV or on your phone or on your computer late at night, wear like blue light blocking glasses and just try not to be on your phone late at night because that really affects the production of melatonin, which is going to help us fall asleep. And that affects our cortisol, which is going to help us wake up. And it's just this whole cycle. So I think that whole thing has been really, really eye-opening for me.
Well, we got things to change at the grocery store and we got sleeping habits to change as well, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been awesome and just super informative. Also, not a lot of people like to talk about this stuff. It's really easy to go about our lives and not change our diets or take things out, even though it could be affecting us. So I appreciate what you're doing and what you're educating people about.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think the most important thing is like, don't overwhelm yourself when you're trying to start. Like, just make tiny shifts and your journey will go from there. It doesn't have to be complicated. I think the internet overcomplicates things a lot, and just keeping it simple is best.
Yes, totally agree. Do you want to shout out your social media so people can follow you and keep getting all these really helpful tools and things to utilize in their life?
Yeah. So my Instagram is _ Graceful Wellness. And then my other socials are in the link in my bio. So you can find me on everything else there.
Love that. And you also you were the founder of Graceful Wellness, which is your name combined with wellness. I see what you did there.
Yes.
And you have courses in there and stuff to help people. So if you want to mention that a little bit.
Yeah. So I have a course, it's called the Gut Health Guide, and it kind of takes you through the process to heal your gut. It's kind of like a one-on or like a do-it-yourself version of my one-on-one coaching. So I have all that. And then I also have a 3-month coaching program to help heal your hormones, your digestion, whatever you need.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much again just for joining me and talking about all these things I can tell you're super passionate about too, which is even better.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.